Welcome to the deep dive. We've got some really fascinating material you've sent in, and today we're diving into something quite unusual.
Oh, yeah. What do we got?
It's a transcript from the Review Spirit, that's the Spiritist Review, dated April 1858.
Okay, 1858 Spiritist Review. Interesting.
Yeah, and you can actually find this text shared on the Vida Espiritual Felipe Alvarez YouTube channel. It claims to be communications with, get this, the spirit of Bernard Palissy.
The Potter, the 16th century guy.
That's the one. Apparently he's now living on Jupiter.
Wow, okay. Jupiter. So not exactly NASA's version, I'm guessing.
Definitely not. So our mission today for this deep dive is basically to explore what this document says about Jupiter and its inhabitants, from this very specific historical, spiritual perspective.
Right, over 160 years ago. It's a window into a different way of thinking, isn't it?
Absolutely. So let's unpack this.
Yeah, it's crucial to remember the context here. This isn't science as we know it. It's Spiritism from the mid-19th century.
A framework for understanding the afterlife, other worlds, maybe?
Exactly, and using a historical figure like Palissy as the messenger, let's say, gives it a certain weight, at least for people back then.
And Palissy himself, quite a character. The transcript mentions that after he died, his spirit apparently stuck around Earth for about 30 years.
30 years. Doing what?
Well, interestingly, it says he took the form of a woman, a loving and devoted woman on a mission.
Oh, that's specific.
And his whole focus shifted. It wasn't about his pottery or earthly fame anymore. It was all about spiritual growth gained through suffering.
That tracks with a lot of Spiritist ideas, suffering as a catalyst for, purifying the soul.
Right. And it even says he worked with someone called Victorien Sardou to create drawings of Jupiter.
Drawings? Really?
Yeah, drawings. The whole point being to inspire humans, us, to become better people. Kind of makes you think about priorities, doesn't it? Art versus spiritual upliftment.
It really does. That idea of spiritual evolution trumping earthly success is central. Suffering isn't just random. It has a purpose in that framework. And using art for moral improvement, that's a very particular take.
Okay, so let's actually go to Jupiter, according to Palissy. First off, the climate. Forget space probes. He says it's mild, consistently temperate.
Not like Earth with its extremes, then.
Not at all. He actually compares it to the Elysian Fields.
My mythical paradise. So it's basically presented as an ideal place, a haven.
Pretty much. No rough weather, just peace and quiet, seemingly.
Which really sets it apart from Earth, suggesting it's a more evolved plane of existence.
And the light is different, too. He calls it spiritual light.
Spiritual light. Okay, what does that mean in this context?
Well, he says it's suited to the inhabitants, unlike the crude light from our sun, which, by the way, looks smaller from Jupiter, apparently.
So it's less about physical illumination and more about something else, like a divine energy.
Maybe. It sounds like a light perceived more by the spirit than the eyes. He does say there's an atmosphere, though.
But not made of the same stuff as ours, I bet.
Exactly. He says the elements are different. It all just reinforces this idea of Jupiter being fundamentally spiritually attuned.
A higher vibration, perhaps, in their terms.
What about water, though? That seems pretty essential.
Does he mention it?
He does. He says water and seas exist, and interestingly, formed from the same basic elements as ours. He uses a term, mesorea.
Mesorea. Never heard that one. Probably a term from that era's Spiritist vocabulary.
Could be. But here's a big difference. No geological chaos.
Meaning?
No volcanoes, no earthquakes, none of the great crises we have. It's called the abode of the blessed.
Wow. So total stability.
And he adds that matter itself exists there only minimally.
Minimal matter. That suggests a less dense reality, more ethereal maybe, where the spirit is dominant. It really pushes that paradise idea.
So what about life forms? Plants, animals, people?
What does Palissy say?
Plants are similar to Earth's, but, more beautiful, of course.
Naturally. And the inhabitants.
They look like us, basically, but bigger. Larger than your largest men is the phrase used. And well proportioned.
Bigger humans.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Oh, yeah. This is where it gets really interesting. Their physical form directly reflects the spirit's quality.
So your body shows how good or evolved you are.
Exactly. It's not a prison like it can feel here. It's described as a subtle veil. Good spirits can literally see into each other's hearts.
Whoa. Total transparency.
And their bodies can apparently shift. Opaque, diaphanous, translucent, depending on the purpose.
That's fascinating. The body as a direct spiritual readout. It implies a kind of honesty we just don't have physically anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe the translucence relates to interacting with different spiritual levels.
Could be. What about gender? Does that exist?
Good question. Does
Yeah.
he mention sexes?
Yeah, he says sexes exist wherever matter exists. Calls it a law of matter.
Okay, so that's consistent. What about food? Diet?
Initially, it sounds like animals and vegetables, but then it's clarified. It's purely vegetal.
Just plants?
Well, plants, and also absorbing emanations from the environment.
So partially just soaking up energy. Less resource intensive, maybe?
Seems like it. And lifespan. Brace yourself.
How long?
Around 5 of our centuries.
500 years. Seriously.
Yep. But their childhood is proportionally faster, and crucially, getting older doesn't mean losing intelligence.
So no dementia, no decline. Just centuries of learning and experience.
And no earthly diseases either. Their life is just a balance of action and rest.
That's quite the vision. A life without sickness, decay, or the kind of anxieties we have about aging. It suggests so much more time for whatever they do.
Which leads to the next question. What do they do with all that time?
Good point. 5 centuries is a long time to fill.
Their main job, according to Palissy, is encouraging spirits in lower worlds like Earth, presumably to stick to the path of good.
So they're like spiritual mentors or guides for other planets.
Seems like it. They actively seek out suffering beings to offer support.
Altruistic service as a primary occupation. That's a strong theme.
But interestingly, he kind of dismisses earthly arts, painting, music, all that, calls them toys to distract from pain, useless on Jupiter.
That's a bit harsh on the arts. From a spiritist view, maybe they see earthly art as tied to our messy emotions and they've moved beyond that, towards more direct spiritual expression.
Perhaps. He also mentions they can move freely, not stuck to the ground, because of their body's density or lack thereof.
Floating or gliding.
Sounds like it. And things like boredom or dissatisfaction don't exist, because those feelings apparently come from self-contempt, which they don't have.
Wow. Freedom of movement, freedom from negativity. It points to a real state of inner peace.
Now, communication. How do these advanced beings talk?
Not like us, I'm guessing.
Nope. No articulate language needed. It's telepathic.
Telepathy. Fully.
He calls it second sight, but says it's not special. It's their normal, permanent way of communicating.
So everyone reads everyone's mind, all the time.
Pretty much. The spirit has no barriers, he says. Nothing is hidden.
That level of transparency. It would change everything, wouldn't it? Imagine a society with literally no secrets between people.
Hard to even conceive of. What about knowing the future? Can they do that?
Good question. With telepathy and all.
It depends on their spiritual perfection. They apparently know enough to fulfill their missions, but it's not like God's total knowledge. And communicating with spirits here on Earth is easier for them because Jupiter is less material.
Makes sense within that logic. Less static, maybe?
And death.
Is it scary for them?
Not at all. Because evil doesn't exist there, death holds no horror. It's just seen as a transformation, moving to greater perfection. No suffering involved.
Peaceful transition.
Although, he does add that some very good spirits choose missions that involve suffering out of love for good. But for them, failure isn't possible.
So even in paradise, some choose a harder path for a higher purpose. That's interesting. But the general lack of fear around death, that's huge.
Totally unimaginable from our viewpoint, really. Okay, let's talk society. How is it structured?
Are there, like, different levels of spirits?
Yes, he refers to the Spiritist scale, different degrees within the same overall order. But importantly, everyone on Jupiter is good and superior. Evil just doesn't mix with good there.
So, no bad apples.
None. There are different peoples, apparently, but they're all united by love. War is completely unknown.
No world without war.
And he predicts it will eventually disappear here on Earth, too, as we become less selfish and understand fraternity better.
An optimistic view. Do they have leaders?
Yes, but authority comes from being more spiritually perfect. More knowledge, more experience. Not power or money.
A meritocracy based on goodness.
And you advance by becoming purer, understanding more. But he makes a point. There's no comparison to Earth.
How so?
He says if you took Earth's most advanced person and put them on Jupiter, they'd be like, well, like, you're monkeys.
Ouch. Okay, so a vast difference in evolution then. That's a stark image.
It really emphasizes the gap they perceived. Do they have laws?
If there's no crime.
They have divine laws, but no need for penal laws because, yeah, no crime and no rich or poor like we think of it.
How does that work? Everyone has the same.
Not exactly. Everyone sees each other as brothers, sisters. They'd share immediately if someone needed something. An individual's fortune matches their spiritual condition.
So needs are met, but maybe abilities or roles differ.
Right. He says unhappiness comes from envy or jealousy, not from actually lacking things. Social differences are based on individual talents, developed through education.
So inequality exists, but it's about faculty, not wealth, and doesn't cause strife.
Seems to be the idea. And interestingly, he says if someone on Earth makes enough spiritual progress, they can go straight to Jupiter after death.
Directly. No waiting.
Well, maybe a period of wandering first to find the right spiritual body.
I see. What about religion? Temples, worship?
Nope, none of that. No diverse religions, no buildings. The heart is the temple, good deeds are the worship. Everyone just professes good and worships one God.
A very internalized, action-based spirituality. It sounds incredibly harmonious.
Palissy really hammers home that Jupiter isn't just morally superior, but physically, too.
How so physically?
Their bodies are less dense, lighter, allows them to glide effortlessly.
Right, the movement thing.
When they die, the body just disperses. No decay, no putrefaction.
Cleaner, less messy.
Many earthly diseases, especially from, excesses and passions, just don't exist there.
Healthier lifestyle built in, it seems.
Their diet is ethereal fruits, plants, absorbed from the environment mostly.
We covered that, yeah. Very efficient.
Lifespan much longer, development faster, spirit detachment is easy. Telepathy is common, maybe alongside some articulate language still.
The second sight thing.
Yeah, but it's normal for them, like being constantly lucid or clairvoyant. They have an intuition about the future and clear consciences, so no fear of death. It's just a change.
A completely different relationship with life and consciousness.
Even animals are progressing there. They're still more material than the human-like beings, but they work willingly, like partners.
Not subjugated or exploited.
No. The inhabitants act as benevolent protectors, like a tutelary divinity for them.
Wow. Even the human-animal relationship is idealized.
And why share all this? What's the point of describing this utopia?
To make us jealous.
Maybe a bit. But the stated reason is to inspire us, to cultivate a love for goodness, give us hope that we could maybe one day reach a world like that.
So it's meant as motivation, like those drawings Palissy supposedly did.
Exactly. Aimed at inspiring us towards betterment. It's really quite a complete picture they painted back then.
It really is. A whole interconnected system, physical, social, spiritual, all reflecting this state of advanced harmony and goodness, overcoming basically all the problems we grapple with.
So just to kind of wrap up the key takeaways from this 1858 transcript, we're looking at a Jupiter with perfect weather, spiritual light, total stability.
Inhabited by these large, long-lived telepathic beings.
Whose main job is helping others, living in a society without war, poverty, crime, or even fear of death, driven by love and goodness.
Bodies that reflect the spirit, effortless movement, close connection to nature, even with animals.
It's a fascinating vision. So thinking about this whole 19th century spiritual view of Jupiter, what parts of that, if any, resonate with you when you think about an ideal future? And maybe what does this vision suggest about what the priorities of a truly advanced civilization might actually be compared to ours?
That's a deep question to ponder. Is it technology? Or is it this kind of inner development, this harmony?
Definitely food for thought. And if this has piqued your interest, we really do encourage you to check out the review Spirit itself, or just explore Spiritism more broadly. There's a whole world of thought there.